both Chinese and Indians are very hardworking. We always have a very proud history, heritage, and so on and so forth. Also, sometimes we even share the same jokes. Like both the country, we do not play soccer well. Like 35% world population really doesn't get along with the World Cup. What a coincidence. On the one hand, we are saying US try to contain China. On the other hand, India was saying China try to contain India. So for me, it's like in this world, we are all connected and dependent on each other. No one can really contain the other one to grow, to transform itself. I always, talking to some Indian friends, we always enjoy recall the days when PM Modi was visiting President Xi in Wuhan before pandemic. That was the high time for both nations.
Welcome to the Ginger River Radio Podcast, a part of the GRR Media Outlet, and your go-to podcast for anything about the Chinese current events. I'm your host, Jiang, the founder of Ginger River Review, a newsletter that focuses on reporting the priorities of both the leadership and the general public in China, and views you do not normally see from mainstream English language media. If you haven't subscribed to our newsletter, go to www.gingerriver.com and sign up to join our community of avid China watchers. Now, let's dive into our podcast show today. In April this year, India outstripped China as the most populous nation globally, sparking a question among political observers. Can India support China to become the next global superpower? Presently, India's fertility rate is nearly twice that of China, and its economy has been growing at a faster pace than China's for the last 2 years, with India's GDP expanding by 6.1% last quarter, compared to China's 4.5%. Recent years have seen a ratcheting up of tensions between China and India over border disputes, and these conflicts appear to be spilling over into other domains, including the media and technology. Specifically, India has accused Xiaomi's Indian division and its executives of violating India's Foreign Exchange Management Act and seized a considerable amount of funds. Are India and China inherently rivals? How is India's business environment as the country is hoping to become the new world factory? What impact does India's 5,000-year history have on the nation's modernization process and its goal of becoming a superpower? Join me to talk about China-India relations in the post-pandemic era, India's role in the world and its business culture today is Mike Liu, Liu Hong, who is Vice President, Senior Fellow of Center for China and Globalization, CCG, a leading non-governmental think tank in Beijing. Mike is also an accomplished executive with over 30 years of professional experience in digital transformation, operational excellence, cross-cultural leadership development, and market growth strategies with leading technology multinationals. Mike is a former managing director and legal rep for DXC Technology in Greater China region. And before that, Mike was the global vice president, country head, and legal rep for Infosys in Greater China region. Mike's experience spans across Greater China, US, Singapore, and India, where Mike has demonstrated his unique capacity to accomplish the growth agenda for the organizations he has served. He is also the author of the book, The Rise of India's IT Sector. In the book, he shared his experience in the Indian company and his insights into the secrets behind India's IT sector's success. We will discuss his book in this episode. Hi Mike, welcome to Ginger River Radio.
Hi, JJ. Very happy to be here.
Thank you, Mike. I'm really happy that you are having this show with us. Could you first share with our listeners a little bit more about your personal history with India and the kind of work you are doing at CCG right now?
Actually, I started engaging India when I came to Singapore in 1996. after completing my MBA in the US. So I was hired by Hewlett Packard to work in a regional marketing center in Singapore, and India was one of the countries under my business portfolio. So I start my Indian connection since my days in Singapore, and right now I'm as you introduced, I'm with the CCG to provide advisory services for business sectors and chambers of commerce, research on India-related projects such as tech industry, trade, public policy. All these things have become my personal passion.
Mike, I think you are one of the few people who has like high-level positions in Indian companies for a certain considerable time, and you are now studying and making research on the India-related subject. So my first question is that, in your opinion, what are some common misconceptions that the Chinese people might hold about India? And conversely, what misunderstandings do you think Indians might have about China?
Right. Well, JJ, I still maintain a record. I'm the China-born Chinese running Infosys. This record has been there for last 20 years and even today. So, I was so privileged to have this opportunity to work there, to really strengthen my understanding about Indian culture, Indian people, Indian style of management, as well as how to interact with headquarters customers, as well as employees in China, right? So I look at in my all these years experience, if I may, the Chinese, the misconception about India, if I look at one of things would be undermine diversity and in culture and economic growth potential in India, because people typically Chinese people always, when they talk about India, they always have an impression, have a running train with all the passengers, even inside of cabin as well on top of the train, right? So that's a typical, Chinese perception, but many people really do not understand the diversity as well as, strong economic performance, as you mentioned earlier. Right. On the other side, on the flip side, I look at the Indians' misperception on China is that, used to be, and look at China, really have no idea China have been progressing last 20 years, and I always thought maybe China is still very much behind as India it is, right? And even today, some people here, they look at China has made great progress in transforming the society. And India also feel, well, China, maybe you can try to contain India's growth. I think those are major misperception between two nations.
Right, and we know that both China and India have rich histories stretching back thousands of years and both large populations. From your perspective, what are some interesting commonalities between the two nations, and where we might see opportunities for cultural exchanges between the two countries?
I look at as I develop my understanding about India, in last 20, 30 trips to India, going to different places, I became very fascinated about the culture, history. I see a lot of similarities, right? If I may, I look at some shared common attribute for two nations. I very much, we all have a strong belief in education. Both Chinese and Indians are very hardworking. We always have a very proud history, heritage. and so on and so forth. Also, sometimes we even, share the same jokes, like, both the country, we do not play soccer well. Like 35% world population really doesn't get along with the World Cup. What a coincidence, because both China and India were not really a competitive player in the soccer game, right? So I look at the many. Yeah, I look at that. Sometimes I feel, both nations, Indians play cricket, Chinese play the table tennis, ping pong, right? We'll say we are more literally good at with the sports with our hands rather than with our legs, right? So I look at the definitely I see lots of similarities. And also I look at the for the two nation, definitely there are many areas we can promote the exchange programs, like student exchange programs, also promote culture exchange. And I was aware there are many Indians the students come to China before pandemic, studying Chinese medicine here, and also some Chinese people go to India to learn yoga and meditation. Both countries have a passion, true passion, I would say, for food. And also for the consumer goods. Also, you talked about Xiaomi before. I look at in my travel down to the India, literally I can see a lots of Chinese consumer brands like Xiaomi, Vivo, and Oppo, and as well as higher those consumer goods, right? So I look at lots of things we need to promote to build an adequate understanding about two nations.
Actually, you mentioned about that the two countries, like both of them are not play soccer very well, but they constitute like 35% of the world population. By 2023, India has become the most populous country in the world with an average age of 28. How do you think this demographic factor might impact India's future development? Would you say that India's population growth could fuel its economic advancement the way China's population has?
This is my opinion, absolutely. And if you look at the China economy, have been growing in the last 20, 30 years. Let's say exactly, we have a very strong younger population, be able to join the workforce, be able to attribute to the strong growth of the economy. If I look at the in India case, it's even more obvious. Indian private consumption accounts for 63.3% of your nominal GDP in 2022, right? So with the not just youth population, it will definitely help India to accelerate the growth. Size of population is one of the important parameters to yield higher the economic growth ratios.
So we know that India has a large population, but for the past years, do you think that there is any differences in terms of the population's impact on the economic development comparing with China?
That's a very good question, JJ. I look at the what I'm saying here is a trend. Maybe will strongly reflect in the economic growth in 5 or 7 years, right? If you look at in last 2 years, I can see the younger generation population in India, they skip certain levels, like many of them, they even do not have a landline. Some of them, they even not have the bank account. They jump into a mobile phone. They start to the payment, shopping from the mobile phone, right? So, but I do not have a number how this younger generation contribute to the GDP, but as the economy goes, I will anticipate to see a much stronger contribution to Indian economy in the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about India's diplomatic approach. We know that India is hosting the G20 and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit this year. Prime Minister Modi has also recently visited the US and addressed the Congress. Besides that, India seems to be adopting a balanced stance on the Russia-Ukraine conflict. And its decision to host the G20 tourism meeting in disputed Kashmir has sparked some controversy. How would you describe India's diplomatic approach in recent years under Modi?
Well, I look at I was there when Modi visited Shanghai, and I look at the Modi has a longer term strategy. What you just described, those recent events or exposure for India on the global stage, that's a part of his longer term strategy, right? So I think he has a strong belief to position India as the bridge connecting major political and economic partnership in the world. It's always his strong belief to, promote India, to increase India's visibility in the global context, right? So I see the foreign policy has adopted independent foreign policy from the core interests of India in navigating complex geopolitics these days. India constantly explores opportunity to showcase his strong economic recovery to the world and try to maximize the exposure, leveraging G20, BRICS, SCO to gain the visibility of India favor, right? So you are saying India held the G20 tourism forum in the dispute Kashmir. I look at that's probably it's exactly strategy. Indian government try to make a point known to the world that they have the control, right? So, well, I don't think that's a right strategy because obviously you will create some discomfort with some country, who also acknowledging the dispute, right? So, but that has been maybe in my view, has been a way Modi has proposed. He want to leverage whatever opportunity he has to promote this the strong growth of India to the world.
How do you think about Modi's speech in the Congress and his recent interactions with the US leaders?
Well, I look at he maintained a very, sometimes I have to give PM Modi my heartfelt respect. He has adopted a very skillful, balanced approach, right? If you look at his meeting with President Biden and also achieved those quite substantial agreement with the U.S., is that reflects he is taking the balanced approach, try to how to manage this relationship with the U.S. And the flip side, he also have a strong the connection with Russia, right? So if you look at the way he is managing, and he try to adopt independent view, but also he also be able to build the trust as well as a good relationship. If in the U.S. context, he built a connect us. U.S. have been the democratic country with long history being in a democratic system, and India as a democratic country with the largest population, right? I think the way he articulated this shared value, and that definitely help India to position well in the global context.
Yeah, and with so shared value and also the agreement signed by the two countries, there's a talk about the U.S. wanting India to replace China in the world supply chain. How plausible do you think this is? And some people in China also believe that China should implement policies to curb India's industrialization and keep it from becoming a competitor. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I look at actually this idea is very popular these days, right? US want India to replace China in the world manufacturing supply chain, so on and so forth. I think practically it's not possible, at least in next 10, 20 years, because both the countries will come with different strength and value proposition. If you look at China, really have built the manufacturing capacity as well as the ecosystem to support the manufacturing capacity, right? And also on the other hand is because this very large market in China, domestic market, that give this world-class world supply chain opportunity continuously improve itself. Well, if I look at in India, they are still in a very early stage, right? I mean, even now talk about high-end manufacturing capability. I'm talking about basic maybe consumer goods assembly as well as the basic maybe manufacturing capability for the white goods, right? So I think India is not there, right? Even I don't want to talk about China has significantly invest in technologies, to accelerate the transformation of Chinese manufacturing capabilities to be a digital, to be a smart manufacturing system, right? So I don't think the hypothesis will happen in next 20 years, right? So, and for obviously, as you also mentioned, in China, there are some ways of saying, we need to proactively figure a way how to contain Indians' industrial transformation, so on and so forth. Well, I look at just on the one hand, we're saying U.S. try to contain China. On the other hand, India was saying China try to contain India. So for me, it's like in this world, we are all connected and dependent on each other. No one can really contain the other one to grow, to transform itself. Right, so I look at the whole thing. China has really made a great progress over last 2 decades, and in the future 2 decades as well. I look at this manufacturing capability take a long time and huge investment, right? So I don't think India will have the opportunity to really catch up with the China pace, because we always very proudly say, well, China speed. When we see it, we are able to mobilize the entire system to get it done, right? Even recently, the Secretary of Foreign Affairs for India, he was saying he was actually admire China for being able to confront the problem and solve the problem. He was saying Indian people always look at the problem and hope the problem will be disappearing one day itself, rather than confront the problem and solve the problem. I see both countries will have a different strength and weakness. And I think definitely we should not let those hypotheses to block the view to exchange ideas and try to share. As I mentioned earlier, I look at China, India, we need to try to explore a way to exchange, to build an adequate understanding about each other, right? I look at some areas for collaboration or can be in the industry of educational program and OTC, pharma industry, Chinese medicine, software, food, and as well as entertainment, movie industry. Those industries represent huge room for growth as economies are getting stronger every day.
I'm sure that everything takes time, and both of these two countries have their own strengths and weakness, as you mentioned. But in recent years, we see there are border disputes, and also that the journalists in these two countries, face some problems, and there are also like companies like Xiaomi are facing challenges operating there. Do you think that the level of the country diplomatic approach, do you have any suggestions that for how China should handle its relationship with India? Do you think that China should like optimize or adjust some of its diplomatic approach with India? Is there any like key aspects that China should pay more attention to?
Well, I look at this cannot be a one-side game. Yeah, it's not about what the Chinese side is going to do. I think both sides will acknowledging the problem and be able to figure out a way. I look at the recent engagement, between two nations. Some things we are still not aligned, but something where both teams are still keep talking. I look at those positive signs. As a matter of fact, this week, I'm aware the G20 youth, the entrepreneur delegation from China will go to Delhi to join the G20 youth, the entrepreneur forum in Delhi. Right. So I think, some communication, some engagement, some exchange of different opinion will crucial to help both sides to grow and develop adequate understanding about each other, right? If both government or both foreign affairs teams, they all just based on the newspaper to make their judgment or the strategy for engagement, then I will see a bit bizarre, right? So we have to acknowledge India will become number 3 economy in the world, probably by 2030. And even Indian business leaders also predict India will bypass the US to become number 2 economy by 2050. Right? If I recall, I was reading this article. Indian tycoon Gautam Adani was saying early this year, India has taken 58 years to reach a first $1 trillion economy, and now it only takes 12 to 18 months to produce another $1 trillion GDP, right? So I look at on the one hand, China's side, we need to understand India is grow. Obviously, is in the Indian way, right? And India side also need to pay attention to Chinese side and the way how we interact with the neighborhood country, right? I look at in NASA, I always, talking to some Indian friends, we always enjoy recall the days when PM Modi was visiting President Xi in Wuhan before pandemic. That was the high time for both nations. I think as the pandemic gradually settle the dust, right? And both countries, we need to send the teams to exchange at a different level. And I think the Chinese president will be there, I don't know whether in person or online, for the G20 summit in September, right? I look at many platforms for senior leaders of two nations to exchange ideas. Right, I look at as far as have an adequate engaging model that will help the two countries to build the adequate knowledge about each other and figure out a way. If you look at in many years, right, China and India will never had too many problems. Only problem is today, what we see, the challenges, border dispute, and also part of the side effect of some other geopolitics impact, right? So I think with a good understanding about the root cause of those dispute, and both sides need to figure a way to work together, because I strongly believe it is in both the government's faith that to improve the quality of life and accelerate the economic development for both country itself, right? I think that objective will prevail.
We just talked about that. There's a talk about US wanting India to replace China world supply chain, but there is also another viewpoint that the US should be wary of India potentially becoming another China. And you just mentioned about India's potential in terms of economic growth. So having held prominent position in American and in Indian companies, where do you see the US-India relationship heading in the near future? Do you think certain disagreements between India and the West could influence a potential India-West alliance against China?
Well, if you look at the U.S. system, my understanding is that they run by the different terms of presidents, right? So in this regard, U.S. Most likely take a practical and a short-term approach. Right now is because everybody is saying China is going to overtake U.S. The economy by 2032 or 2000 or even before 2035, right? So if you look at some people also acknowledging China already passed U.S. economy. If you look at from the purchasing power perspective, right? So I think U.S. is working hard, try to team up with whatever country they can team up to, put pressure on China growth. Right, as simple as that. So in that regard, I see U.S. is very aggressive to straighten the agreement with India. However, on the other side, if I look at in the history, even during this Russia-Ukraine conflict, India has maintained quite a balanced midnight view, right? So on the one hand, from the Western world, we're saying, India, you should not doing the business transaction with Russia. You should stop buying the oil from Russia. But India keep doing it. And I look at the many Indian politicians, when they got the pressure from the Western world, they always say, I have my view to do the things I want, right? So in the short term, U.S. try to do that, but in the medium term, I would say I will anticipate to see more disagreement between U.S. and India relationship. Because one of the things as I talk about, even Gautam was saying on newspaper, he believed in the democratic system. However, he also believe or acknowledging in the world, they should not one democratic system. So that means the diversity of a different system will be the beauty of the world. So that's a very Indian style approach to tackle this complex issue. That doesn't mean, India completely get along with the U.S. will be a strong allies of U.S., which I don't think so.
In your book, The Rise of India's IT Sector, you delve into the commonalities and differences between Chinese and Indian corporate cultures. It's clear that Indian talent has made a significant impact in global companies, including those in Silicon Valley. Why do you think this is the case? What can the Chinese entrepreneurs and professionals learn from this phenomenon?
Well, I look at this phenomenon come from a certain context, right? If I really record my personal experience interacting with India or Indian people, and as well as taking a leading role within Infosys, I look at certain things, the culture definitely will make an impact. But the global leaders with the Indian heritage, they have create a differentiate value proposition in global business environment between Asia and the world. What do I mean by the differentiate value proposition? Because they have a very simple things. For the Western side and the Western leadership, they look at Indian leaders represent great names in executing strategies well. They have empathy. They are also hardworking, right? I recall last year I was very impressed with this interview, CNBC interview with both this founder of Starbucks as well as incoming CEO, right? Incoming CEO is Indian, right? They hired this guy from UK. And I look at definitely I see the chemistry and between this founder and the incoming CEO definitely have very charming relationship in the business context, right? So I look at it from a Chinese side. Many people, Chinese people ask me, Mike, what's your perspective and how do you guys see Indian people in Infosys or in those global clients, they have interaction with the Infosys, so on and so forth. I look at Indians, have a very good, superior leadership attribute in articulation, in communication, and they are very much, comfortable in the, corporate protocols. That means how you are able to understand how to set a strategy, how to the drive for the performance, deliver, solve the problem, and how you can get your hands dirty rather than sitting in the back to decide whether this is my problem or it is not my problem. So many people in front of the bosses, they always travel extra miles to solve the problem. So I look at the leadership style. Definitely, Indian people have better knowledge in this regard. Some people they will say, well, because Indian people, number one, they maybe have this colonial mentality. They are, try to position themselves in the system and work along with the system protocol to get that recognition from those people. On the other hand, some people also acknowledging, saying, well, because back in India, there are not many opportunity. I look at maybe back in 10 or 20 years ago. So many smart Indian people, once they join the West, they get engineering degree and join multinationals and work through the corporate ladders. In the course of pursuing that, they also, after a couple of years, they choose to take an MBA to enhance their management knowledge. So they, in doing all these things, they are, building up the adequate knowledge about how to navigate in the corporate world. So I look at definitely from a Chinese side, we need to look at obviously how we can learn from the U.S. market and how we are able to learn how the corporate protocol in this from the Indians. Where if I look at under contracts, Chinese business leaders either they feel I reach a certain level, director level, or even a few VP level. In most of technology company, I am a comfortable life, have a family. I just stay with where I am. Or on the other side, some Chinese maybe have a more passion to start a business because Chinese economy is growing fast, and then they choose to come back to China. To do their own things, right? So I look at both sides. We need to learn and how to, adapt to the opportunity they feel familiar with. If you look at from a global context, Chinese people need to learn from Indians how to navigating in global context or corporate protocol, right? As time goes by, if more Chinese people can be successful in the corporate life, and you will see more Chinese leaders to take top jobs in those multinationals. So I look at both sides. We need to learn from each other.
So, do you believe that the so-called Indian colonial history and the language that Indians speak, Indians speak English as well, and give them some advantage in competition with, well, their Chinese counterparts in the Western companies?
Yes, it does, but that's not the determining factors. If you look at the Chinese typical mindset about Indian people's success is well, they speak a better English. By the way, if I really look at numbers, approximately maybe just 10% of people in India they are speaking English. And if you look at many, even in the Infosys, in my context, many people, Indian people during lunch or they work in the team meeting, they speak their own local dialect to interact with them. They even like a Chinese will saying, we have English and the Mandarin mix up in our communication with the Chinese people, right? Indians do the same thing. When they talk to the people outside, like to me or to the Western leadership, they will speak decent or proper English, right? So I look at the one thing is that demonstrate their adaptability to the environment and how they are able to learn, how they are able to learn, master necessary skills in order to work in the protocol to get along. Right, so we should not undermine, well, English is born with the Indians. That mentality is not true, right? Everybody is learning, and the way you learn, you master a foreign language, give you a new window to the outside world, and give you a new hope or passion to put yourself and in the learning shoes and how to adapt the new knowledge or outside world, right? So I look at we should admire Indian people, how to, master the foreign language to be able to open the new window for themselves, right? I look at many Indians who are maybe in the domestic market. Some Indians, they are comfortable to speak a dialect, only interact with the local society or the relatives or friends. That's okay. But for someone have a much bigger ambition to to themselves, to the family, they definitely get the adequate knowledge in English is clearly a very critical skill for them to get along.
We talk about the success of individual success in Western, in global companies. But on the other hand, there are also some arguments about the current business climate in India. From your experience, how would you evaluate the current business environment in India? What advice would you give to international companies looking to break into the Indian market? And how might they avoid potential run-ins with the Indian government, as seen in recent cases with Xiaomi, Citibank, HSBC, the Deutsche Bank?
Right. I look at this business environment. I always say this to my friends. We cannot, assume everything will be done at the China pace, right? If you look at how China opened our door in the last 40 years, our government, our society are very much aligned to remove those trading barriers, to simplify the process or policies, right? Where if you look at in a country like India, it is very behind. But if you look at in the history back in the 1980s, well, it was much tougher. If you look at in the early history of how Infosys was started, everybody had a terrible headache, right? Figure a way to live with the bureaucrats, live with those policy, which definitely was very harmful to start your own business, right? Over these days, I look at business environment in India has been improved from time to time, but it's still very different from the way we see what's going on in China or in the US, because US is a simple market, it's a well-developed market economy. So if people from outside, it's very easy to get started or at least easy to understand how to do things, right? Well, in India, it is not the case. Even the certain things are vary from different states to the different states. So that's a reality, right? Claiming as the largest democratic country, India's state government and the business authority, as well as the regulatory bodies, they could all have a different opinion on the same issue, and that's the way system was built, right? So you cannot, based on Chinese mentality, I have this saying from a government, everybody will be lined up to support me. Like Modi was in Shanghai, he was saying to all the Chinese entrepreneurs, say, you invest in India, you got a problem, you come to me. Sometimes it's not that easy, right? So we have to, get the adequate understanding or do a proper assessment. If I may, based on my experience or my assessment, top 3 consideration to really break into the domestic market in India would be thorough. Number 1 would be a thorough assessment of regulatory policy, business environment, even currency exchange policy. If you can make a profit, are you able to transfer the money out of India in a legitimate manner? And what's the legal practice about setting up foreign-owned enterprises or JV? And what's the government policy, as you set up a foreign company? And like lately, they want the, Chinese company to take the Indian-born CEO or COO or CFO in the Chinese company running a business in India, right? Second things, you have to have a thorough assessment and understanding. I always say in India is the same case, right? Understanding the problem is half of the answer. So if we have a good understanding, then we can develop a strategy. Second, as a business goes, for the business entity in India, you need a strong board of directors or governance board. So this board is not going to interfere with operation matters for the operation, right? For the sales, marketing, customer service, or product support, even supply chain. So this government, the governance body or board of directors knows I would say the methods, how to detect the business environment changing from time to time, how those parameters, as I mentioned, regulatory, business, tax, foreign exchange, as well as employment law, have been in progress, have been improved from time to time, right? Sometimes maybe getting better, sometimes maybe getting worse. And this board of directors or governance board need to have, constant assessment of this running environment, right? That will be very important so there will be the board objective to make a strengthen the connection with the local key stakeholders in government, regulatory body, or business communities. Right? I look at that will be important. Third, if I really put this thing, if any bad things happen, always have a plan B. That's if you look at investment, there is no formula for sure win. You always have to have a constant, conscious idea about when and how. If I look at certain scenario happen, I have to get a plan B, right? So I look at those are the critical consideration for a mature company to open the operations in India. On the other side, I heard from my Indian friends, they will say, you know what? In India, I see the Facebook, Google, I see many Western people, companies, they are doing really well. So you cannot really complain for the business environment in India has been severe to the foreign investments and the economy, the foreign direct investment, all the ratio have been improved in last couple of years, right? So I look at the transformation of Indian system is in progress. That's what I have to say, right? And for the foreign companies like Chinese company, European company, US company, even for Indian company, they running into a similar problems one way or the other. But how we learn from those incidents or mistakes, how we build a supporting environment to be able to enable the enterprise or business excel in Indian market, because it is largest population. It is growing very fast, young generation. That's the very promising side, despite all the hardship or challenges. That's why so many people are still a bit bullish about how to run business in India.
I like the three considerations you just mentioned. And so do you think that if the things was being better handled from the Xiaomi side, for instance, such problems or run-ins can actually be better dealt with or even be avoided in such cases, despite political tensions between the two countries?
Right, but I think there is always a way. If you really look at, I always say, try to mirror this situation compared to what we have gone through, right? Many companies, they also run into similar problems, not severe as, these days with the Chinese or Western company in India, but some multinationals had similar challenges in China over last 30 years, right? They had a problem to transfer the profit outside of China, how they try to convert the local currency RMB into US dollars in a legitimate manner to be able to send back the profit to the corporations, right? So I think for globalization or company running the business in the global market, definitely there is the learning curve for everybody to embrace, to everybody to learn and reflect, right? So I'm not really negative on this Xiaomi instance in India, but also this is just part of the learning curve, right? If a Xiaomi probably can learn from what they are and how they figure out the governance model, build a supporting structure, how to assess similar challenges and figure a way fix to those challenges. Well, definitely then I would say they will be much stronger for Xiaomi in next 20 years.
Now let's move to the recommendation session. We invite every guest of our podcast to recommend something to our listeners. It can be a book, a movie, a TV series, a podcast, or even a video game. Mike, do you have anything to recommend for us today?
Well, I look at this as my favorite part. I like many Indian books and I really fascinate. If I could just recommend one book, I would suggest our friends to read Juga Innovation. Gugaad Innovation. Author by David Loiseau and a few more folks. And if I may, just refer to this former CEO of Nero Nissan, Carlos Ghosn. And he was saying this book really explains how emerging economies are pioneering the art of agile engineering, which also provides practical tips on how Western firms can likewise do more with less. I think this is very important for India and as well as China as a emerging economy, how we are able to play with our street smart to contribute to the development of society or innovation. I look at this book, I really fascinated about many things even from a Chinese mindset. They feel, wow, this is not unbelievable. They were saying maybe, yeah, amazing India, but look at that. How the local people, street smart, be able to leverage the very primitive resources and do the fix. Have a courage to do the fix. That's very important. And talk about movie. I also have this favorite Indian movie. I would suggest Tango. And the lead actor is famous Admirable Khan. And the story resonates a lot as I recall a similar experience that Chinese female long-distance runner who were trained before they become the world champions. I look at this Tango is definitely a great movie. Whether you see that as an Indian movie or Chinese movie, I would say it fits well in both cultures. We have a belief, we have the courage to take a hardship in our quest for the success. Juga Innovation is also a great book. I highly recommend everyone if you have a chance to read it.
Thank you for the recommendation first. And I just searched the Zhuge innovation on the internet. The Zhuge means searching the solution in an intelligent way to find like a low-cost solution to solve a problem. And that actually describes like three common features of the Indian entrepreneurs. First is frugal, trying to use limited resources to do more things, as you just mentioned. Second is that they are very flexible in thinking. They will pay much attention on finding an innovative or creative way to solve problems. The third is that they are very inclusive. They were trying to include more people into their economic activities, and that represents how the Indian entrepreneurs doing things, which I think you also mentioned a little bit in our conversations. It actually reminds me of some other countries like philosophy, such as the Kaizen philosophy in the Japanese entrepreneurs. It means like continuous improvement in terms of business operation. So it's really fascinating to learn, because I know that both you and me, we all have like MBA degree. Sometimes such type of things are also what we have to learn in the program. So it reminds me lots of things, and I'll definitely check that out. And for the movie, I think it's also another reminder that actually both of these two countries have lots of commonalities. I think you mentioned about the female long-distance run. It's about Ma Jiajun, the very famous. I think lots of Chinese people know that.
That's right.
Yeah, and
right. I look at Ma Jiajun is exactly like Amir Han to do the similar things. This male coach has been very tough, serious, and push the guys to the limits. I look at that. That's what I keep saying. Do you really see that Indian movie or Chinese movie? But it is a great showcase to the Western world to appreciate how the people from this part of the world demonstrate the strong desire and to pursue the excellence. Right? That's a great movie.
Yeah, the competitive nature that you can both of these two countries. That's a great movie. And yes, thank you so much, Mike. Thank you for taking time to have this podcast show with us. I really appreciate giving us lots of great insights into the China-India relationship.
Thank you, JJ. It definitely is my privilege to have this opportunity to discuss those things with you. I feel not only I share my experience, also I learn a lot from you as well. And thank you so much for having me.
The Ginger River Radio podcast is a part of the GR Media Outlet. Our show is produced and edited by me, Jiang Jiang, He Yuzhe from University of Chinese Academy of Sciences, Yu Liaojie from Shanghai International Studies University, and Jia Yuxuan from Beijing Foreign Studies University. For cooperation, investing, or feedback, email me directly at jiangjiang@gingerriver.com or just give us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts. We would be delighted if you would recommend our podcast or newsletter to others if you find it helpful. Thank you for listening and see you next time. Take care.